The security camera timestamp reads 2:47 p.m., November 18, 2025. Lecture Hall B14 at Westridge University appears ordinary. Rows of wooden seats, a whiteboard covered in philosophical theories, afternoon sunlight streaming through tall windows. But in exactly 43 minutes, this room will become the epicenter of an event that defies every law of nature Dr. Marcus Holloway has spent his career defending. The camera captures everything. Every word. Every gesture. And what comes after. What you're about to witness has been verified by multiple sources, examined by skeptics, and analyzed frame by frame. Make sure you're watching until the end, because the evidence speaks for itself, and it challenges everything we think we know about reality. Dr. Marcus Holloway commands the front of the lecture hall with the confidence of a man who has never questioned his convictions. At 52, he carries himself with intellectual authority. Salt and pepper hair perfectly groomed, wire-rimmed glasses perched precisely on his nose, a tailored charcoal suit that speaks of academic success. For 27 years, he has taught philosophy of religion at Westridge University, a prestigious institution nestled in the rolling hills of western Massachusetts. The lecture hall holds 83 students this particular Thursday afternoon. They sit scattered across the tiered seating, laptops open, phones face down as per classroom policy. Most are juniors and seniors, drawn to Holloway's reputation as both brilliant and controversial. His course syllabus warns students that comfortable beliefs will be challenged. Few realize how literally he means it. Holloway's voice fills the space with practiced ease. He discusses the philosophical problem of evil, moving seamlessly between Epicurus and modern theodicy. His teaching style mixes academic rigor with theatrical flair. He paces, gestures broadly, occasionally stops to fix a student with an intense stare when making a particularly pointed argument. The security camera mounted in the back corner captures it all in high-definition clarity. The university installed these cameras 2 years ago after a series of equipment thefts. They run continuously, backed up to cloud servers every night. This particular camera has recorded hundreds of Holloway's lectures without incident. Until today. At 2:51 p.m., Holloway transitions to a new topic. He pulls up a slide showing various religious artworks, Byzantine icons, Renaissance paintings, Eastern Orthodox imagery. The images depict the Virgin Mary in different artistic traditions spanning 15 centuries. A student in the third row, Emily Santos, shifts uncomfortably. She comes from a devout Catholic family in Providence, Rhode Island. Her grandmother wears a miraculous medal every day and has made 3 pilgrimages to Fatima. Emily chose this class hoping to strengthen her faith through intellectual challenge, but lately she questions that decision. Holloway's tone shifts slightly, taking on an edge his regular students recognize. This is when he moves from objective analysis to pointed critique. He gestures toward the projected images with what can only be described as theatrical disdain. The professor begins dissecting the concept of the virgin birth, applying reductionist logic to each claim. He calls it, perhaps the most psychologically revealing mythology in Western religion. He suggests it reflects ancient patriarchal anxieties about female sexuality. He refers to it as useful fiction for social control. Several students take notes mechanically. A few exchange glances. Emily's pen hovers motionless over her notebook. At 2:56 p.m., Holloway moves to stand directly beneath the projection screen. Bathed in the glow of sacred images he clearly regards as nothing more than historical curiosities. The camera captures his expression perfectly. Confident, slightly amused, completely certain of his intellectual superiority. What happens in the next 40 minutes will strip that certainty away completely. But first, Holloway makes a choice that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He decides to make his point more memorable with a dramatic gesture, something his students will talk about, something that cements his reputation as fearlessly rational. The security camera records him reaching for a small statue he keeps on his desk. It's a cheap reproduction of Michelangelo's Pieta, maybe 6 inches tall, purchased at a museum gift shop years ago. He holds it up, turning it to catch the light. And then Dr. Marcus Holloway, tenured professor of philosophy, begins to mock the Virgin Mary in front of 83 witnesses and one unblinking camera lens. Holloway's voice takes on a performative quality, dripping with sarcasm barely disguised as academic discourse. He holds the small Pieta statue like a prop in a one-man show, rotating it slowly for the class to see. The security camera captures every word, though the audio quality makes some phrases sharper than others. Holloway speaks about primitive superstitions dressed in marble and gold leaf. He questions how educated people in the 21st century can accept biological impossibilities wrapped in celestial mythology. Emily Santos feels her face flush. Her hand moves to touch the small silver cross hanging beneath her sweater, hidden from view. Around her, other students react in varying ways. Some lean forward with interest. Others look down at their desks. A young man in a Red Sox cap smirks and whispers something to his neighbor. Holloway sets the statue on the podium with exaggerated care, treating it like a museum piece being analyzed rather than a sacred image being desecrated. The afternoon light catches the white plastic, making it gleam against the dark wood surface. At 2:58 p.m., the professor's rhetoric escalates. He begins a comparison between Marian devotion and ancient goddess worship, suggesting that Christianity merely rebranded pagan archetypes for a new market. His gestures grow more animated. His voice rises slightly, projecting to the back rows where students might be tempted to zone out. The camera shows 3 students in the back row clearly uncomfortable. One, a young woman named Rebecca Chen, whose parents are Presbyterian missionaries, closes her laptop and crosses her arms. Another student, David Morrison, keeps glancing at the door as if calculating whether leaving would be too obvious. Holloway continues undeterred. He questions the logic of perpetual virginity, asking why a religious tradition would fetishize biological impossibility unless it revealed deep cultural pathology. He uses phrases like theological absurdity and mythological construct no different from Zeus transforming into a swan. Emily's pen snaps. The small crack echoes in a momentary pause, causing a few heads to turn. She stares down at the broken halves in her hand, blue ink staining her fingers. Her eyes are suspiciously bright. The professor doesn't notice or doesn't care. He has reached what he clearly considers the intellectual climax of his argument. At 3:02 p.m., he picks up the Pieta statue again, holding it aloft like evidence in a courtroom. His final statement combines philosophical critique with outright derision. He suggests that believing in the Virgin Mary requires willful suspension of rational thought, and represents exactly the kind of intellectual surrender that civilization must evolve beyond. The security camera shows him placing the statue back on his desk with a dismissive gesture, not violent, but unmistakably contemptuous. He turns back to face the class, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He has made his point. His students will remember this lecture. He has no idea how right he is. At 3:03 p.m., the lecture hall's atmosphere feels different. Several students would later describe it in remarkably similar terms. The air seemed heavier somehow, thicker, as if pressure had dropped before a storm. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows appears unchanged to the camera, but Rebecca Chen will later swear it dimmed momentarily. Holloway transitions to discussing philosophical materialism, apparently considering the matter closed. His voice returns to its normal professorial cadence, measured, authoritative, intellectually precise. He references Daniel Dennett and Richard Dawkins, building toward his semester-long argument about consciousness as purely physical phenomenon. The students settle back into routine. Laptops click open. Pens resume moving across notebooks. The moment of tension passes, or seems to. But Emily Santos cannot focus on Dennett or Dawkins. She stares at the broken pen in her hands, at the ink staining her fingers like accusation. She thinks about her grandmother's face when she prays the rosary, about the peace her mother finds in daily mass, about the statue of Mary in her childhood parish that somehow made her feel safe during her parents' divorce. The security camera captures Emily raising her hand at 3:06 p.m. Holloway acknowledges her with a nod, still riding the momentum of his previous performance. Emily's voice barely rises above a whisper, but the lecture hall's acoustics carry it clearly. She asks if perhaps the professor's critique says more about his own need for certainty than about faith itself. She suggests that mockery is not the same as analysis. The camera shows Holloway's expression shift, not to anger exactly, but to the particular condescension academics reserve for students who challenge them emotionally rather than intellectually. He responds with elaborate courtesy that barely masks his dismissal. He thanks her for sharing her feelings, but redirects the discussion to evidence and reason. Emily's face burns. She closes her notebook and doesn't open it again. At 3:08 p.m., Holloway returns to his prepared material, apparently unconcerned. He has handled uncomfortable moments before. Student emotions are natural when confronting ideas that threaten their worldviews. In his mind, discomfort is part of the learning process. The security camera shows him consulting his notes, taking a sip from his coffee mug, gesturing toward his next PowerPoint slide. Everything appears normal. Routine. Forgettable. 35 minutes remain until the lecture's scheduled end. 34 minutes until the impossible begins. The change starts so subtly that no one notices immediately. At 3:12 p.m., the security camera captures a slight flicker in the lecture hall's fluorescent lights, barely perceptible, the kind of momentary dimming that happens in any older building when HVAC systems cycle on. Holloway continues discussing the philosophy of consciousness, completely absorbed in his material. He writes qualia on the whiteboard in his distinctive angular handwriting, underlines it twice. His back is to the class as he explains the hard problem of consciousness through the lens of strict materialism. The Pietà statue sits on his desk exactly where he placed it, unremarkable plastic catching afternoon light. At 3:14 p.m., something happens that the security camera records with perfect clarity, though it would take investigators 3 viewings to notice it. The statue moves. Not dramatically. Not obviously. It shifts perhaps half an inch to the left, rotating slightly on its base. The movement is smooth, continuous, lasting maybe 2 seconds. There is no vibration, no bump, no external force visible on the recording. None of the 83 students notice. Their attention is on Holloway, who has turned back from the whiteboard and is now pacing as he develops his argument. He discusses Patricia Chutchland's neurophilosophy, building a case for consciousness as purely electrochemical process. At 3:16 p.m., Rebecca Chan in the back row suddenly shivers despite the lecture hall's warm temperature. She pulls her cardigan tighter around her shoulders and glances around, trying to identify the source of the sudden cold draft. There are no open windows. The HVAC vent above her shows no unusual activity. The camera shows her frowning, rubbing her arms, then forcing her attention back to her laptop screen. Holloway moves to stand behind his desk, one hand resting casually on the wood surface. He is now less than 18 inches from the statue. His fingers drum absently against the desktop as he searches for the right phrase to encapsulate his next point. At 3:18 p.m., the lights flicker again, more noticeably this time. Several students look up. A few glance at the ceiling fixtures. The interruption lasts perhaps 3 seconds before the fluorescents return to full brightness. Holloway pauses mid-sentence, momentarily distracted. He looks around with mild annoyance, then continues. As I was saying, if we accept that consciousness emerges from neural architecture, then concepts like the soul become unnecessary explanatory frameworks. He stops abruptly. The security camera captures his expression changing with remarkable speed, confidence dissolving into confusion, then something resembling disbelief. His eyes are fixed on his desk, specifically on the Pietà statue. For 5 full seconds, he stares at it without speaking. The lecture hall falls silent. Students exchange glances, uncertain whether this is theatrical pause or genuine disruption. Holloway's hand, which had been resting on the desk, moves slowly toward the statue. He touches it carefully, almost tentatively, as if confirming its solidity. The camera shows him picking it up, examining it closely, turning it over in his hands. A student in the fourth row, James Kowalski, raises his hand. "Professor? Is something wrong?" Holloway doesn't answer immediately. He sets the statue back down, but in a slightly different position than before, more centered on his desk, further from the edge. His fingers linger on it for a moment before he withdraws his hand. "No," he finally says, though his voice lacks its usual certainty. "Just thought I saw something. Let's continue." But he doesn't continue smoothly. He has lost his place in his notes. His next few sentences come out disjointed, uncharacteristically hesitant. The students sense something off but can't identify exactly what. At 3:21 p.m., the temperature drops measurably. This time, it's not just Rebecca who notices. Students throughout the lecture hall react, pulling on jackets, crossing arms, shifting in seats. The change is dramatic enough that several people look at the thermostat mounted on the sidewall. The digital display reads 72 degrees Fahrenheit, unchanged from before. Yet the camera captures visible breath condensing from at least a dozen students. Emily Santos wraps her arms around herself, goosebumps visible on her forearms. David Morrison in the back row whispers, "What the hell?" to his neighbor. Holloway tries to regain control. "The facilities management in this building has always been questionable," he says with forced humor. "Perhaps we can." He stops again. The Pietà statue is no longer where he placed it. It sits at the exact position it occupied before he moved it, near the desk's edge, angled slightly toward the classroom. The security camera captures Holloway's face draining of color. His hand trembles slightly as he reaches for the statue a second time. He picks it up, stares at it, then deliberately places it in the center of his desk again. This time he doesn't take his eyes off it. "Professor Holloway?" Emily's voice cuts through the confused silence. "Are you all right?" The lecture hall is now cold enough that the camera shows fog forming on the windows, impossible condensation appearing in seconds, obscuring the late afternoon view of campus. Holloway opens his mouth to respond, to provide a rational explanation, to regain his authoritative control of the situation. The lights go out completely. For 3 seconds, the lecture hall plunges into absolute darkness. The security camera switches automatically to infrared mode, capturing the scene in ghostly green-black contrast. 83 students sit frozen, illuminated only by laptop screens casting eerie upward shadows on faces. And in that darkness, the camera records something that will be analyzed thousands of times in the coming weeks. The statue glows. Not brightly. Not like special effects in a movie. But there is unmistakable luminescence emanating from the small plastic figure. Soft, white, like moonlight through fog. The lights snap back on. The glow vanishes instantly. The statue appears completely ordinary, sitting exactly where Holloway placed it for the second time. But every person in Lecture Hall B14 saw what preceded the darkness. Every person noticed the impossible cold. Every person is now staring at Dr. Marcus Holloway, waiting for the rational explanation he has built his career providing. He has none. At 3:24 p.m., Dr. Marcus Holloway does what he has done for 27 years when confronted with uncomfortable data. He attempts to impose rational framework onto chaos. "Obviously a power fluctuation," he announces, voice only slightly unsteady. The security camera captures him straightening his tie, a gesture his students recognize as nervous habit. Combined with, what, some kind of phosphorescent property in the plastic? Cheap manufacturing sometimes uses glow-in-the-dark materials. "Professor, I saw it move." The voice belongs to James Kowalski, the student who first asked if something was wrong. James is a physics major, known for his skeptical mindset. I was watching your desk when the lights came back on. The statue was in a different position. Optical illusion caused by the transition from darkness to... We all felt the temperature drop, Rebecca Chen interrupts from the back row, surprising herself with her boldness. That's not normal. And the windows? She gestures toward the glass now covered in impossible condensation. That doesn't happen from HVAC malfunction. Holloway forces a laugh that sounds hollow even to him. Mass psychological suggestion is a well-documented phenomenon. When one person perceives something unusual, others become hyper-aware and interpret ordinary events as. A sound interrupts him. It's difficult to describe precisely. The security camera's audio captures it clearly, though investigators will struggle to categorize it. Not quite a crack, not quite a whisper. Like stone scraping against stone, or wind moving through a space too small for wind to exist. The sound comes from the statue. Every eye in the lecture hall turns toward Holloway's desk. The small Pieta sits motionless, unremarkable plastic reflecting fluorescent light. Yet everyone heard the sound emanate from its direction. Acoustic anomaly, Holloway says quickly. Old buildings settle, pipes expand and contract. The lights flicker again. This time they remain dim, creating a twilight gloom in the lecture hall despite the afternoon sun that should be streaming through windows now completely obscured by frost. Because it is frost now, not merely condensation. The camera captures intricate crystalline patterns spreading across the glass in geometric formations that shouldn't form at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Several students pull out phones, filming the impossible ice flowers blooming on the windows. Emily Santos stands up. Her chair scrapes loudly against the floor, a jarring sound in the unnatural quiet. "Professor Holloway," she says carefully, "I think we should leave." "Sit down, Ms. Santos." Holloway's voice carries sharp edges now, fear disguised as authority. "We are not evacuating a classroom because of a minor electrical problem and student hysteria." The statue falls. The security camera captures it clearly. The Pieta topples off the desk's edge, tumbling toward the floor in a trajectory that should end with plastic shattering against tile. It doesn't shatter. It stops. Mid-air. For 2 full seconds, the statue hangs suspended 18 inches above the ground, rotating slowly as if displayed in zero gravity. The camera's timestamp ticks forward, 3 hours 26 minutes and 17 seconds, 3 hours 26 minutes and 18 seconds, as laws of physics politely excuse themselves from Lecture Hall B14. Then it rises. Smoothly, continuously, the Pieta floats upward until it reaches desk height again. It rotates once more, completing a full 360-degree turn, before settling gently back onto the wood surface exactly where Holloway originally placed it an hour ago. In the exact spot where he stood to mock the Virgin Mary. The lecture hall erupts in chaos. Students scramble from their seats. Someone screams. Laptops clatter closed. At least 20 people are filming now, phones held high, capturing evidence that will spread across social media within hours. Holloway stands frozen, his face ashen. His hands grip the desk edge so tightly his knuckles turn white. For the first time in his academic career, he appears utterly lost, stripped of every explanation, every rational framework, every comfortable certainty. "Everyone remain calm," he manages, but his voice lacks conviction. "There's a logical explanation for..." The temperature drops so precipitously that the camera captures frost forming on metal chair backs within seconds. Breath clouds hang thick in the air. Several students huddle together for warmth, primal instinct overriding social awkwardness. Emily Santos moves toward the door, and this time no one stops her. A dozen other students follow, then 2 dozen. The exodus accelerates rapidly. Holloway makes no attempt to prevent them. He stands motionless behind his desk, staring at the statue with an expression somewhere between horror and unwilling awe. Within 90 seconds, the lecture hall empties to less than 20 students, those too transfixed or too frightened to move. Rebecca Chen remains, though she has backed up until she presses against the far wall. David Morrison and James Kowalski have pulled out their phones, documenting everything with a desperate focus of people who need evidence to convince themselves this is real. The security camera continues its unblinking observation. The timestamp reads 3:28 p.m. 15 minutes until the class period officially ends. 15 minutes that will fundamentally alter Marcus Holloway's understanding of reality. If he survives them. The statue begins to glow again, brighter this time. The light is no longer soft moonlit luminescence but something more direct, more intentional. It pulses like a heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, impossible to ignore. Holloway finally moves. He steps backward, away from his desk, away from the glowing figure. His foot catches on his chair and he stumbles, barely catching himself against the whiteboard. The word qualia is still visible behind him, a bitter irony he's too shocked to appreciate. "This isn't happening," he whispers, voice barely audible. "This isn't." The statue's glow intensifies further until looking directly at it hurts. Several students shield their eyes. The camera's automatic exposure adjusts, trying to compensate for the impossible brightness emanating from cheap painted plastic. And then, at 3:29 p.m., something happens that no camera can adequately capture, no investigation can explain, no skeptical analysis can dismiss. The statue speaks. Stick with this account. What unfolds in the next few minutes has been verified by 23 independent witnesses, analyzed by audio forensics experts, and examined by investigators who came looking for fraud and found none. The evidence is about to challenge everything we think we understand about the boundary between the natural and supernatural. The voice does not come from the statue exactly. This distinction matters. The security camera's audio analysis will later show that the sound originates from the space around the Pieta, as if the air itself has found the ability to form words. The voice is female. Quiet but perfectly clear, carrying an accent that linguistic experts will spend weeks trying to place. Middle Eastern, perhaps Aramaic in its tonal qualities, yet somehow universally comprehensible. Every person in the lecture hall understands it despite speaking only English. "Why do you speak of me with such contempt?" The question hangs in the frozen air. Marcus Holloway's face transforms from terror to something approaching catatonic shock. His mouth opens but produces no sound. His legs tremble so badly he has to grip the desk again for support. None of the remaining students move. Rebecca Chen's phone slips from her nerveless fingers, clattering on the floor but not breaking. James Kowalski has stopped filming, though his phone remains raised, forgotten in his hand. The statue's glow pulses brighter with each word, creating rhythmic shadows that dance across the walls. The frost on the windows seems to respond to the light, patterns shifting and reforming in impossible geometric precision. "You who have studied the words of the wise," the voice continues, gentle but carrying unmistakable weight, "you speak of mysteries you do not comprehend with certainty you have not earned." Holloway finds his voice, though it emerges strangled and weak. "This isn't real. Mass hallucination. Infrasound causes paranoid delusions, electromagnetic fields can." "You fear me not because I defy your understanding," the voice interrupts softly, "but because my presence here proves your understanding incomplete." The temperature rises slightly, enough that the painful cold becomes merely uncomfortable. The light from the statue softens to something less blinding, more like candlelight. These small mercies somehow make the moment more surreal, not less. David Morrison, previously frozen against the back wall, suddenly bolts for the door. The voice does not stop him. He crashes through the exit, footsteps echoing in the hallway beyond. 2 other students follow in scrambling panic. The remaining witnesses, 17 students plus Holloway, stay rooted, whether from terror, fascination, or paralysis unclear. "Who are you?" The question comes from Emily Santos, still standing near her seat in the third row. Her voice shakes but holds steady. "Are you, is this?" She cannot finish. The enormity of asking the question makes articulation impossible. The statue's glow flickers gently, almost like acknowledgement. "I am who you imagine when you pray in secret, who your grandmother sees when she closes her eyes in worship, who brings comfort to those who seek without demanding proof." The voice pauses. The frost on the windows begins to melt, water running in rivulets down the glass, catching light like tears. "But I am not only comfort. I am also truth. And truth comes to those who mock it with questions they cannot escape." Holloway finally manages to stand without support. His academic training, his 27 years of intellectual discipline, struggles to reassert itself against the evidence of his senses. "If this is real, if you're real, then prove it. Show me something that can't be explained by." "You watched the statue fall and stop," the voice says simply. "You felt the cold that has no source. You see light from plastic that contains no power. How many proofs do you require before you admit you were wrong?" "I need evidence that can be tested, verified, subjected to peer review." "You need permission to believe," the voice interrupts, and now there is something almost like sadness in it. "You have built walls of words around your certainty, and now you sit trapped inside them, unable to see that the walls have no foundation." Rebecca Chen suddenly speaks from her position against the wall, voice high and strained. "What do you want from us? Why are you here?" The statue's glow brightens momentarily, then settles again. "I am here because I was called. Not by prayer, but by contempt. Not by love, but by mockery." The heavens take note when sacred things are profaned, and sometimes, rarely, response is permitted. "So this is punishment?" James Kowalski's voice carries surprising steadiness given the circumstances. "Divine vengeance?" "No." The word rings with gentle finality. "This is mercy. A chance to see clearly what pride has obscured. An opportunity to choose again with full knowledge rather than comfortable ignorance." The security camera captures Holloway sinking into his chair, elbows on his desk, head in his hands. The statue sits inches from him, still glowing, still impossible. His shoulders shake, whether from cold, fear, or suppressed sobs, unclear. "I don't understand," Emily whispers. "Why reveal yourself to him? Why here, why now?" "Because he stands at crossroads," the voice replies. "Because his words poison minds, and those who lead others astray bear greater responsibility. Because grace sometimes appears precisely where it is least expected and most desperately needed." The lecture hall falls silent except for the soft drip of melting frost and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights struggling to maintain full brightness. The timestamp on the security camera reads 3:33 p.m. The official class period will end in 10 minutes. But everyone present knows instinctively that time has become meaningless here, that the normal progression of seconds and minutes has yielded to something operating on a different frequency altogether. Holloway raises his head. His face is wet, tears, sweat, or both. His voice emerges broken, stripped of its usual authoritative polish. "What do you want me to do?" The statue's glow intensifies one final time, bright enough that several people turn away. The light fills every corner of the lecture hall, banishing shadows, making the afternoon sun outside seem dim by comparison. And then it speaks the words that will echo in Marcus Holloway's mind for the rest of his life. "Seek the truth you claim to value." The words hang in the luminous air like a command and an invitation simultaneously. The statue's glow begins to fade, gradually returning to ordinary plastic lit by ordinary fluorescent bulbs. But before the light disappears completely, the voice continues with devastating simplicity. "Go to St. Catherine's Church on Maple Street. Sit in the presence of what you have mocked. Be still for 1 hour. Bring nothing but your questions. Speak to no one of what you seek. At the end of that hour, if you still believe I am delusion, you will walk away free. But if doubt has found you, you will know what to do. The glow vanishes entirely. The statue sits inanimate on Holloway's desk, cheap plastic, made in China, purchased for $8 at a museum gift shop 7 years ago. The frost has melted from the windows. The temperature has returned to normal 72 degrees Fahrenheit. The fluorescent lights burn steady and bright. For several long seconds, no one moves. The lecture hall could be a photograph, a frozen moment capturing 17 people and one professor suspended between ordinary reality and something they cannot name. James Kowalski breaks the silence first. Did everyone hear that? Tell me everyone heard that. Nods around the room. Murmured confirmations. Rebecca Chen has her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emily Santos grips her desk so tightly her hands have gone pale. Holloway stares at the statue. His eyes are red-rimmed, his carefully groomed appearance disheveled. When he speaks, his voice carries none of its usual certainty. This can't be. There has to be. He trails off. What is there to say? What explanation covers levitation, impossible cold, glowing plastic, and a disembodied voice that answered direct questions with specific instructions? A student named Michael Torres, who has remained silent throughout, suddenly stands. I'm going to St. Catherine's. Right now. Anyone want to come? 3 students rise immediately. Then 2 more. They gather belongings in stunned silence, moving like sleepwalkers, and file toward the door. None of them look back at Holloway. What would they say? What comfort or clarification could he offer? Emily approaches Holloway's desk cautiously, as if the statue might suddenly animate again. "Professor," she says quietly, "I think you need to do what it said." What she said. I can't. Holloway's response is immediate, almost reflexive. I have faculty meeting at 4:30. I have papers to grade. I have a reputation to. He stops, hearing how hollow the words sound. Reputation. As if academic standing matters when confronted with evidence that reality operates by different rules than he has taught for nearly 3 decades. Emily picks up the Pieta statue. Holloway flinches backward, as if it might burn her. But it remains cool plastic in her hands, completely ordinary. She extends it toward him. "Take it with you," she says, "as a reminder." Holloway doesn't reach for it. He stares at the small figure, Mary cradling her dead son, frozen in moment of ultimate grief and faith, and something inside him cracks further. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispers. "I don't think you can afford not to," Emily replies. She sets the statue gently on his desk, then turns and walks out, leaving Holloway alone with the remaining students and the security camera still recording every moment. The exodus continues. Within 3 minutes, the lecture hall is empty except for Marcus Holloway. The timestamp reads 3:37 p.m. Officially, 6 minutes remain in the class period, but everyone has abandoned pretense that normal academic routines still apply. Holloway sits motionless, staring at the statue. His mind races through possibilities, searching desperately for rational frameworks. Collective hysteria? But the security camera recorded everything. Elaborate hoax? But no technology explains what happened. Brain tumor causing vivid hallucinations? But 23 other people witnessed the same events. The explanations collapse as quickly as he constructs them. At 3:40 p.m., he reaches out tentatively and touches the statue. It remains inert, just plastic shaped into devotional imagery he has dismissed countless times. But now the dismissal feels less like rational conclusion and more like willful blindness. He pulls out his phone, types St. Catherine's Church, Maple Street, into the search. The results show a modest Catholic parish 3 miles from campus, founded 1887, daily Mass at 8 a.m. and 5:30 p.m., confession Saturdays 4 to 6 p.m. Unremarkable. The kind of place he has driven past hundreds of times without noticing. His finger hovers over the phone screen. Making the appointment, navigating to the address, would require maybe 4 touches. 4 simple actions that would set him on a path toward what exactly? Confronting his certainty? Admitting he might be wrong? Opening himself to possibilities he has spent his entire career denying? The faculty meeting excuse is real. He's supposed to present his department budget proposal at 4:30. But even as he considers this, he knows it's pretext. The meeting can be rescheduled. Papers can be graded tomorrow. The real barrier isn't logistical. It's terror. Because if what happened in this lecture hall was real, if the voice was genuine, if the supernatural exists and can manifest in his classroom on a random Thursday afternoon, then everything he has built his identity upon crumbles. His publications arguing against religious experience. His reputation as fearless skeptic. His certainty that only the material world deserves serious consideration. All of it becomes sand castles before incoming tide. At 3:44 p.m., Marcus Holloway makes his decision. He stands, picks up the statue, and slips it into his jacket pocket. He gathers his notes, closes his laptop, and walks toward the door with steps that feel both determined and dreamlike. The security camera captures him pausing at the threshold, looking back at the lecture hall one final time. This room where he has taught hundreds of students, where he has constructed careful arguments against the very thing that just addressed him directly. Then he exits, leaving only empty chairs and melting frost and the camera still recording the aftermath of the impossible. St. Catherine's Church sits on a quiet corner where Maple Street intersects with Oak Avenue, a Gothic revival structure built from local stone that has weathered more than a century of New England seasons. At 4:07 p.m. on November 18, 2025, Dr. Marcus Holloway stands on the sidewalk outside, staring at heavy oak doors he has never entered. The drive took 12 minutes. He cannot remember a single moment of it. His Volvo sits parked at a meter that still has 32 minutes remaining from the previous visitor. The autumn afternoon casts long shadows across the church's facade, highlighting stone details carved by craftsmen long dead, saints and symbols, crosses and angels, all the religious iconography he has dismissed as architectural ornament without deeper meaning. Now he's not certain what anything means. The street is quiet. A few cars pass. An elderly woman walks a small dog. Completely ordinary Thursday afternoon in a small Massachusetts college town. Yet Holloway feels like he's standing at the edge of an abyss he cannot see but knows absolutely exists. The statue weighs perhaps 3 ounces in his jacket pocket. It might as well be lead. He climbs 5 stone steps to the entrance. The doors are unlocked. Churches often are during daylight hours, he knows vaguely, though he's never tested this knowledge. The heavy oak swings open silently on well-maintained hinges. The interior is dim after the afternoon brightness. Holloway pauses in the narthex, letting his eyes adjust. Rows of wooden pews stretch toward an altar elevated on 3 steps. Stained glass windows line both sides, their colors muted by the declining sun. The space smells of incense, candle wax, and old wood. Familiar scents from the few weddings and funerals he has attended in religious spaces, though always as outsider observing curious customs. The church appears empty. No scheduled mass at this hour. No confession or prayer group. Just silent stone and wood and colored light filtering through images of saints. Holloway walks slowly down the center aisle. His footsteps echo despite his attempt at quiet. He feels absurdly self-conscious, as if trespassing, though the unlocked doors offered implicit invitation. He stops 3 rows from the altar and slides into a pew. The wood is smooth from decades of use, carved with subtle scroll details along the seat back. He sits stiffly, uncertain of proper posture. Should he kneel? Fold his hands? He has no idea what protocol applies. The silence presses against him. In lecture halls, he controls silence, uses it strategically, breaks it purposefully. Here, the silence controls him, fills spaces inside him he didn't know existed. A statue of Mary stands in an alcove to the left of the altar. Larger than the Pietà in his pocket, perhaps 3 feet tall, painted in traditional colors, blue robes, white veil, hands extended in gesture of welcome or offering. Candles flicker in red glass holders at her feet, evidence that someone comes here to pray, to light wicks, to speak to plaster as if it might listen. Holloway stares at the statue. The painted eyes seem to look directly at him. Optical illusion, he knows. Artists create this effect deliberately, positioning irises to maintain eye contact from multiple angles. Understanding the technique should make it less effective. It doesn't. He checks his watch. 4:14 p.m. The voice specified 1 hour. So he should remain until 5:14, or perhaps 5:07 if he's calculating from when he entered the building. The precision feels important somehow, though he cannot explain why. As if fulfilling exact terms of a contract he never agreed to but finds himself bound by nonetheless. What is he supposed to do? The instruction was to sit in presence of what he mocked, bring nothing but questions, speak to no one. The first part is easy, he sits. The second part is unnecessary. He brought nothing, literally nothing, except the statue that prompted this entire situation. The third part is automatic. There's no one here to speak to. So he sits, and tries not to think about what happened in Lecture Hall B, 14 less than 2 hours ago. But of course that's all he can think about. The statue falling and stopping mid-air. The impossible cold. The frost blooming on windows in warm room. The voice that addressed him directly, gently, devastatingly. 23 witnesses. Security camera footage that will be analyzed and debated but cannot be explained away. At 4:22 p.m., Holloway's phone vibrates in his pocket. Text from the department chair asking why he missed the faculty meeting. He types a quick response about feeling ill, apologizes, promises to send his budget proposal via email tonight. The lie comes easily. Too easily. He has spent his entire career claiming to value truth above comfort, yet here he is fabricating excuses rather than admitting what actually happened. Because how do you explain, "I'm sitting in a church because a statue of the Virgin Mary spoke to me during lecture and told me to come here"? You don't. You lie. You defer. You maintain the facade of normalcy even as normalcy dissolves around you. He puts his phone away and forces himself to focus on the present moment. The church. The silence. The flickering candles. The statue of Mary watching him with painted eyes. Minutes pass. His back begins to ache from sitting rigidly upright. He shifts position, trying to find comfort on wooden pew designed for devotion, not ease. At 4:35 p.m., he realizes he's angry. The emotion surprises him with its intensity. Angry at being put in this position. Angry at the voice for not providing clear answers, just cryptic instructions. Angry at the students who will spread rumors about what happened. Angry at himself for coming here, for following supernatural directive like some credulous medieval peasant. Most of all, angry at the possibility, remote, terrifying, increasingly unavoidable, that he has been wrong about everything. The anger burns through him for several minutes, then gradually subsides into something harder to name. Not quite despair. Not quite acceptance. Something like exhaustion mixed with unwilling openness, as if the emotional intensity has stripped away defensive layers he didn't know he was maintaining. At 4:41 p.m., Marcus Holloway stops fighting the silence and lets it fill him. The church remains empty except for him and the watching statues and the flickering candles that burn whether anyone observes them or not. Somewhere outside, traffic moves along Maple Street. Students return to dorms. The ordinary Thursday world continues its ordinary Thursday operations. But here, in this dim space smelling of incense and age, time moves differently. Or perhaps time moves exactly as it always has, and Holloway is simply experiencing it without the constant noise of his own certainty for the first time in decades. He looks at the statue of Mary again. Really looks, not with analytical dismissal but with genuine attention. The painted face is serene but not blank. The artist captured something in the slight curve of lips, the angle of gaze, not happiness exactly, but peace that encompasses suffering. Knowledge without bitterness. Grief transformed into grace. If this is just plaster and paint, why did someone spend hours getting these details right? Why place her hands in that particular gesture of offering? Why does someone come here regularly to light candles at her feet? He has answers for these questions, of course. Psychological projection. Need for comfort in uncaring universe. Evolutionary tendency toward pattern recognition creating false agents where none exist. He has taught these explanations confidently for 27 years. But the explanations suddenly feel thin. Not wrong necessarily, but incomplete, like describing music solely through physics of sound waves while ignoring the reality of beauty, meaning, transcendence that listeners actually experience. At 4:48 p.m., Holloway pulls the small Pieta from his pocket. He sets it on the pew beside him, this cheap replica that impossibly spoke, impossibly glowed, impossibly defied gravity in front of 23 witnesses and one security camera. It looks completely ordinary. Just plastic shaped into familiar religious imagery, mass-produced in factories somewhere in Asia, sold for $8 to museum visitors seeking souvenirs. He picks it up again, turns it over in his hands, examining every detail. The fold of Mary's robes. The angle of Christ's head resting in her lap. The careful attention to proportions even in small-scale reproduction. "I don't understand," he whispers to the empty church. His voice sounds strange in the silence, small, uncertain, stripped of professorial authority. No response. The statue remains plastic. The church remains silent. The candles continue their flickering without comment. He's not sure what he expected. Another voice? Another manifestation? Some clear sign telling him what to believe, how to proceed. But the instructions were specific. Sit in presence of what you mocked, bring nothing but questions, be still for 1 hour. Nothing about receiving answers. Just presence. Questions. Stillness. So he sits. He holds his questions without demanding immediate resolution. He remains still despite the discomfort of wooden pew and unresolved intellectual crisis. At 4:54 p.m., something shifts inside him. Not dramatically. Not like cinematic religious conversion. Just a small opening, like a door that was locked discovering its hinges still work, its lock never fully engaged. He realizes he's afraid. Not of the supernatural manifestation. That fear passed already, burned through in the lecture hall. This is different. He's afraid of being seen. Truly seen. Stripped of credentials and publications and carefully constructed intellectual identity. Afraid that without his certainty, he is nothing. But here in the silence, in the presence of painted statues and flickering candles, that fear loosens its grip slightly. Because if he's being honest, truly honest, maybe for the first time in decades, the certainty was exhausting. The constant need to have answers. The weight of maintaining that every question had been settled, every mystery solved or dismissed. The isolation of standing against centuries of human experience and declaring it all delusion. What if he's wrong? What if he's been wrong not about everything, but about enough that his entire worldview requires reconstruction? The thought terrifies him. And somewhere beneath the terror, unexpectedly, he feels something almost like relief. At 5:03 p.m., an elderly woman enters the church. She's small, perhaps 80 years old, moving slowly with assistance of a wooden cane. She dips her fingers in holy water font near the entrance, crosses herself, then shuffles down the side aisle toward the Mary statue. Holloway watches from his pew, trying to be unobtrusive. The woman lights a candle, kneels with effort at the small rail before the alcove, and bows her head in prayer. Her lips move silently. She stays kneeling for several minutes despite obvious difficulty, then rises with care and crosses herself again. As she passes his pew on her way out, she notices him. Their eyes meet briefly. She smiles, not a greeting smile, but something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Or compassion. Then she continues her slow progress toward the exit. Holloway feels tears prick his eyes. He's not sure why. Something about her simple faith, her persistent prayer despite age and pain, her smile suggesting she knows something he spent his career denying. The church door closes behind her with soft thud. He's alone again with the statues and the candles and the silent stones that have absorbed a century of prayers. At 5:07 p.m., his phone alarm sounds. He set it in the parking lot to mark the end of 1 hour from when he entered. The electronic beep echoes harshly in the sacred space. He silences it quickly, then sits for several more seconds, reluctant to move. The hour is complete. The instruction has been fulfilled. He could leave now, walk back to his car, drive to his apartment, and try to return to normal life. But he knows with absolute certainty that normal life no longer exists. Whatever happened in Lecture Hall B14 has permanently altered his reality. The question isn't whether he believes the supernatural exists. He saw it, felt it, heard it speak directly to him. The question is what he does with that knowledge. At 5:11 p.m., Marcus Holloway stands from the pew. His legs are stiff from prolonged sitting. His back aches. His mind feels both exhausted and strangely clear, like sky after thunderstorm has passed. He walks slowly to the alcove where Mary's statue stands surrounded by flickering candles. Up close, he can see the paint is chipped in places, the plaster cracked from age. She's not perfect, not untouched by time. Yet somehow this makes the statue more real, not less, evidence of endurance, of being present through decades of prayers and doubts and desperate whispers. Holloway reaches into his pocket and pulls out money, 2 20s and a 10. $50 he was carrying for no particular reason. He slips them into the offering box mounted on the wall. It feels insufficient. What is appropriate payment for having your entire worldview destroyed and rebuilt in the space of 2 hours? He picks up one of the taper candles waiting to be lit. His hand shakes slightly as he touches the wick to an already burning flame. The new candle catches, flickers, then burns steady. He has no idea what to do now. Is there a prayer? A specific formula? He spent his entire career dismissing religious ritual as empty performance, but now he stands here wanting to perform it, needing some way to acknowledge what has happened. The words that come are simple, unplanned. "I don't know if you're really there," he whispers to the statue. "I don't know if you listen. But if you do, I'm sorry. For the mockery. For the contempt. For teaching others to dismiss what I didn't understand." His voice catches. He takes a shaking breath and continues. "I don't know what happens now. I don't know how to be wrong about everything I've believed. But I'm here. I'm listening. I'm open." The last word comes out barely audible. Open. The opposite of certainty. The beginning of humility he has never truly practiced despite preaching its intellectual value. The statue doesn't respond. The candles continue flickering. No voice emerges from the air. But Holloway doesn't need another manifestation. Something has shifted inside him, subtle but fundamental, like tectonic plates settling into new alignment after earthquake. He stands there for several more minutes, then turns and walks back down the center aisle. At the door, he pauses and looks back one final time at the dim interior, the rows of pews, the altar, the watching Mary. The church has offered no easy answers, just presence. Maybe that's the point. Outside, the November afternoon has deepened toward evening. Street lights flicker on. The temperature has dropped noticeably. Holloway climbs into his Volvo and sits with hands on steering wheel, engine off, staring through the windshield at nothing in particular. His phone shows 17 missed messages. Students asking if he's okay. The department chair following up on his absence. A colleague inquiring about tomorrow's shared seminar. The ordinary demands of academic life piling up, expecting him to resume normal operations. But he can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the same way. At 5:24 p.m., Holloway makes a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 hours ago. He opens his email and begins typing a message to the university provost. His fingers move slowly, carefully selecting each word. The email is brief. He requests emergency medical leave effective immediately, 2 weeks minimum, possibly longer. He cites unexpected health situation requiring immediate attention without elaborating. He apologizes for the short notice and provides contact information for colleagues who can cover his courses. His finger hovers over the send button for nearly 30 seconds. Clicking it means admitting weakness, revealing cracks in his carefully maintained professional facade. It means disappointing students, inconveniencing colleagues, potentially damaging his reputation. But what choice does he have? Return to Lecture Hall B14 tomorrow and pretend nothing happened? Teach philosophy of religion as if he still possesses certainty about the non-existence of religious experience? Face the students who witnessed the impossible and act as if rational materialism still adequately explains reality? He clicks send. The email whooshes away into digital space. No taking it back now. The machinery of institutional process will begin grinding forward. Approvals, substitutions, rearrangements. His absence will create ripples, raise questions, generate gossip. Let it. For the first time in 27 years, he doesn't care about his academic reputation more than he cares about truth. At 5:28 p.m., he starts the car and drives not toward his apartment but back toward campus. Specifically, toward the administration building where security maintains its servers. The footage from Lecture Hall B14 has been automatically backed up by now. He needs to see it. Needs to verify that what he remembers actually happened, that the camera captured objective evidence of the impossible. The drive takes 8 minutes. Campus is busy with evening activities. Students heading to dining halls, late afternoon classes letting out, intramural sports beginning on the fields. Completely ordinary Thursday evening in academic community that has no idea what transpired in one of its classrooms earlier today. Holloway parks in the faculty lot and walks to the administration building. His ID card grants access to the security office, though he's never used it before. The young officer at the desk, name tag reads Morrison, J. Looks up with polite inquiry. Dr. Holloway, Philosophy Department, Marcus says, trying to sound authoritative despite feeling like fraud. I need to review security footage from Lecture Hall B14, today's recording. There was an incident that I need to document. Morrison's expression shifts to something between concern and curiosity. The lecture hall in Whitman Building? What kind of incident? I haven't received any reports of. Nothing criminal, Holloway interrupts quickly. Equipment malfunction. Lights, temperature control. I need the footage to submit a facilities maintenance request with proper documentation. The lie comes smoothly. Too smoothly. But Morrison accepts it with a nod and turns to his computer. His fingers move across the keyboard, pulling up files, navigating through directory structures. Today's date, Whitman B14, Morrison confirms. What time frame? 2:45 p.m. to 3:45 p.m., Holloway says. His heart pounds uncomfortably hard. What if the camera malfunctioned during the crucial moments? What if the footage shows nothing unusual? What if his memory has fabricated details that objective recording will refute? Morrison clicks through to the file and brings it up on his monitor. Want me to transfer it to a thumb drive, or you want to watch it here? Here, Holloway says quickly. Just need to verify a few details. Morrison stands and gestures to his chair. Help yourself. I need to do a building check anyway. Back in 15. He leaves Holloway alone with the computer and the footage that contains evidence of either genuine supernatural event or his complete psychological breakdown. Holloway takes the offered seat and clicks play. The security footage begins at 2:45 p.m. Holloway watches himself enter Lecture Hall B14, setting his materials on the desk, pulling up his presentation slides. Students filter in, taking their usual seats. Everything appears exactly as he remembers, completely ordinary. He fast-forwards to 2:51 p.m. when he begins discussing religious artwork. The video quality is remarkably clear. He can see his own gestures, his expression, even read his lips forming the words that started everything. At 2:56 p.m., on screen, he picks up the Pietà statue. Holloway leans closer to the monitor, watching his recorded self begin the mockery that seemed so intellectually justified, so righteously rational just hours ago. Now, watching from outside, he sees what he couldn't perceive in the moment, the arrogance. The casual cruelty disguised as academic rigor. The pleasure he took in dismantling beliefs others held sacred. His face on the recording shows satisfaction, almost smugness. He feels nauseated watching himself. At 3:03 p.m. on the footage, the first anomaly appears. The lights flicker, subtle but visible. Several students look up. Holloway on screen continues teaching, oblivious. Then, at 3:04 p.m., the camera captures what 23 human witnesses saw but might have doubted in retrospect. The statue moves. The recording shows it clearly. The Pietà shifts position on the desk despite no visible force acting upon it. The movement is smooth, deliberate, impossible to explain through vibration or draft or any normal physical cause. Holloway pauses the video, rewinds, watches it again. The statue definitely, unmistakably moves by itself. His hands tremble on the mouse. Whatever psychological escape hatches he was unconsciously maintaining, mass hysteria, shared delusion, stress-induced hallucination, slam shut. The camera doesn't hallucinate. Digital recording doesn't succumb to group psychology. It happened. Objectively, documentably, undeniably happened. He resumes playback. At 3:12 p.m., the second movement occurs, then the temperature drop evident in how students suddenly pull on jackets and wrap arms around themselves. The frost appears on windows at 3:18 p.m., visible on camera as crystalline patterns spreading impossibly across glass. At 3:24 p.m., the statue falls and stops mid-air. Holloway watches this sequence 3 times, his heart hammering. The footage captures it from a slightly different angle than his perspective standing at the desk, but the phenomenon is identical. The Pietà tumbles off the edge, freezes in violation of every physical law, rotates slowly, then rises back to the desk surface. 18 inches of levitation lasting approximately 4 seconds. No wires. No hidden mechanisms. No possible explanation within conventional physics. At 3:26 p.m., the glow begins. The camera's automatic exposure adjusts, confirming that actual light emanates from the plastic statue, not optical illusion or perceptual error. Then comes the part Holloway both needs and dreads to see. At 3:29 p.m., the statue brightens significantly, and the audio captures what happens next. The voice. He puts on the headphones hanging beside the monitor and replays the section with sound. The voice comes through clearly despite the security camera's basic audio system. Female, accent indeterminate, perfectly articulate. "Why do you speak of me with such contempt?" The question resonates in his ears. He hears his own stammered responses, his desperate attempts to maintain rational framework against the evidence confronting him. He sounds terrified, small, stripped of the intellectual authority he wielded so confidently just minutes before. The entire exchange is there. The statue's gentle interrogation. His defensive panic. Emily's brave question. The final instruction to come to St. Catherine's Church. At 3:36 p.m. on the recording, the students begin leaving. At 3:37, the lecture hall empties except for Holloway sitting alone at his desk, staring at the statue in stunned silence. The footage shows him remaining there for nearly 7 minutes, motionless, before finally standing and walking out. Holloway stops the playback. He sits in the empty security office, headphones still on though only silence plays now, staring at the frozen image on screen, himself captured mid-crisis, world collapsing around him. The evidence is irrefutable. Whatever else this is, it is not delusion, not fabrication, not explainable through conventional means. He removes a thumb drive from his pocket. He brought it specifically for this purpose, and copies the file. The transfer takes 43 seconds. 43 seconds of objective documentation that the supernatural manifested in broad daylight, in a public university, in front of multiple witnesses and recording equipment. What does he do with this evidence? Release it publicly? His academic training screams yes. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and here is evidence as extraordinary as any ever documented. This could be the most important scientific discovery in human history. But something stops him. Maybe the voice's instruction to speak to no one of what you seek. Maybe awareness that releasing this footage would create circus he's not ready to navigate. Maybe simple recognition that some experiences are too sacred, too personal, to immediately weaponize for academic purposes. He pockets the thumb drive and logs out of the system. Morrison returns as promised, looks questioningly at Holloway. "Find what you needed?" Morrison asks. "Yes," Holloway replies. "Thank you." He walks out of the administration building into full darkness. November evening has settled over campus. Lights blaze from dorm windows. Distant music from a party somewhere. Laughter from passing students. Normal life continuing normally for everyone except him. What happened in Lecture Hall B14 has now been documented, verified, and preserved. But documentation is not the same as understanding. Evidence is not the same as wisdom. The question now is not what happened, but what it means, and that question leads somewhere the cameras cannot follow. At 6:47 p.m., Marcus Holloway sits in his apartment. Faculty housing, modest 2-bedroom he's occupied for 12 years, with a thumb drive on his desk and the plastic Pieta statue beside it. His laptop is open but idle. His phone continues receiving messages he doesn't answer. He makes coffee he doesn't drink. He opens a book he cannot read. He stands at his window watching students move across the quad below, living their uncomplicated Thursday evenings. Finally, at 7:23 p.m., he opens his laptop and begins to write. Not an academic paper. Not a formal analysis. Just words trying to capture what happened, what he felt, what he no longer knows. The writing comes slowly at first, then faster. Page after page of confession, analysis, questions without answers. He writes about the mockery, about the voice, about sitting in St. Catherine's Church feeling certainty crumble into dust, about the elderly woman lighting her candle with such simple faith, about being wrong, about being seen, about the terrifying possibility that reality is larger, stranger, more sacred than his philosophy could accommodate. He writes until his hands ache and his eyes blur, until his coffee has gone cold and the quad below has emptied, until he said everything he needs to say to no one in particular, to the universe, to whatever presence addressed him in his lecture hall and changed everything. At 9:41 p.m., he saves the document, titled simply November 18th, and closes his laptop. He picks up the Pieta statue one final time. Just plastic. Just shaped material. Yet it spoke. It glowed. It defied gravity. It shattered his certainty as easily as he once shattered others' faith. "Thank you," he whispers to it, though he's not sure if he's addressing the statue, the voice, or something beyond both. Then Dr. Marcus Holloway, professor of philosophy, formerly certain skeptic, now thoroughly uncertain believer in he's not quite sure what, goes to bed and dreams of frost blooming on impossible windows and voices speaking from empty air. The security camera footage remains on the thumb drive. The evidence exists. The witnesses will tell their stories. The questions multiply without resolution. But for Marcus Holloway, the most important question has already been answered. Was he wrong? Yes, about so much. And in being wrong, in admitting it fully, he has found the beginning of something he has spent 27 years denying. Not faith exactly, not yet, but the humility required to imagine that faith might be possible. The rest will come. Or it won't. But for the first time in decades, he is open to finding out. On November 18, 2025, in a university lecture hall in Massachusetts, reality bent. Cameras captured it. Witnesses confirmed it. Evidence documented it. A professor who spent his career teaching certainty learned humility. A statue that should have remained silent spoke truth. What happened in those 43 minutes cannot be explained away, rationalized, or dismissed. It can only be accepted or denied, and denial requires ignoring too much evidence from too many sources, recorded too clearly. The question is not whether the supernatural exists. The footage answers that. The question is what we do when confronted with evidence that our certainties are incomplete, our understanding insufficient, our mockery misplaced. Dr. Marcus Holloway is still discovering his answer. The footage remains on a thumb drive in his desk. The students still talk about what they witnessed. St. Catherine's Church still stands on Maple Street, doors unlocked, candles burning, waiting for whoever needs to sit in silence. And somewhere, perhaps, the voice that spoke with such gentle, devastating clarity continues watching, waiting for the next moment when truth must shatter pride for grace to enter.